The next best idea is to go ask the company specifically to say they're going to waive any and all rights to the stuff that you're going to go create. That's tough to do. Most companies are not going to sign that agreement. And in fact, by going to them, you're going to highlight to them that you've been working on this idea that may be valuable to them, and now you're going to kind of try to go take it away from them. So the next best alternative after that is to actually quit and go pursue the idea full time on your own. The middle ground in there is not as on solid ground, but it's the go buy a separate computer, be sure that you only work on this code or on this idea in your off hours, on the weekends, on vacations. You don't use any company resources, no company phone, no company laptop or computer, no company ideas. So if the company's got a lot of data or resources that are going to help you sort of vet out this idea, you can't use it. You got to go find the information independently.
Good advice.
Any other questions on that or ideas on anything else? All right. The last set of thorny issues that show up is this issue about the relationships between the founders. Right at the beginning, everyone's friends. That's the time to get all this stuff settled out. Find out what happens if one person dies. Should they get to keep their stock? What if someone quits early? Should they get to keep their stock? If you're 50-50 partners and you're putting in 80 hours a week and your co-founder's putting in 20, should you still be 50-50 partners? What if one person, what if the company needs cash? Who's going to put in cash? Are you both going to put in equal amounts of cash? If you do, are you still going to own it 50-50, or if one person puts in more cash than another, is the equity split going to start to shift a little? These issues come up. They come up on every single startup. They're always tough conversations to have, but they're better to have at the beginning rather than at the end, because everyone values their own contribution more than their partners. That's just human nature. And when it's all sort of theoretical, it's a lot easier to be objective about. One thing I highly recommend between co-founders is to vest shares. This concept means if you quit, you're going to lose some of your shares. The company's getting it back. So you may say, all right, we're 50-50 partners, but each of our shares are going to vest over the next 4 years. So that means that you'll get basically 1/4 of your shares every year until they're fully vested after 4 years. So what that means is if one person quits for either good reasons or bad reasons, frankly, it doesn't matter, one way or another, they're not there building a business anymore, then at least they're not going to walk off with all of the shares and get a free ride with the company. I think one of the good examples out there, or one of the famous examples of this, is Craig Newmark, who's the founder of Craigslist, had a partner early on and gave him a 25% share of the company. Now, that guy went off, I think after like 6 months, got bored and went on to the next project, but kept 25% of Craigslist. Craigslist went on to become Craigslist, which is now very profitable and a very big company. And that was really a boondoggle for that guy because he didn't do any work. He just knew the right guy at the right time. The other thing that will come up is that guy decided to do next was go and sell his 25% share to eBay, Craig's biggest and most aggressive competitor in the market. And so now his biggest competitor, who would love to see Craigslist die, owns 25% of his company and has the right to show up to board meetings and to vote shares. And all of that could have been avoided really early on had he just subjected the guy's shares to vesting and put a transfer restriction in place to say, and by the way, you can't sell this stuff to anyone else without at least letting me pay a fair price for it first. Those are the types of issues that you want to talk about early on. What if you need to fire your co-founder? How do you guys decide to do that? Should there be a third party involved? Should one person get the trigger and another not? If one person decides to fire the other, should they get to keep all their shares? Yeah, these are the conversations to have. How you can resolve disagreements between each other. Should you go to arbitration? Should you flip a coin? I've actually seen that done before, where two co-founders said, if we ever disagree, one co-founder will pick one position, another co-founder will pick another, and we'll flip a coin between the two of us. That works. And frankly, they did it that way. That would be an utterly asinine statement to do if you were in the middle of intense disagreement. But the fact that you sort of set that out at the beginning, when you get into an intense disagreement, you're like, oh yeah, we did, that is the way we decided to resolve that. So, okay, let's do it. And the business moves on. Or maybe you go to arbitration, or maybe you have some other, some other resolution. There's lots of different ways to that people structure it, but the conversations need to be had early on. Let's see. Other common issues: choice of name. Do an internet search, see if the URL is available. That's a pretty good way to see what's available these days. That is in no way legally binding on your right to use a given name. That goes back to the trademark issue early on. But in today's day and age, that's the first thing people do when they go out and form a company and reserve a name. They get the URL, so that's a pretty good proxy for what's available. The next layer is to go actually do a search for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to see if there is a registered trademark in the name. In general, the more unique a name is, something like Pentium or a made-up word is a lot easier to protect than something like Lawyer Services, Inc. If it's really generic and descriptive, you're not going to get a whole lot of trademark protection. You're not going to prevent someone else from going out there and marketing themselves under the same name. But if it's a really unique made-up word, Google, for example, it's clear that anyone out there who uses the word Google is stealing your name because it's a made-up word. And there's no reason that they would use it otherwise. 83B elections is just a stock issue when you have founder vesting stock. Just be sure to ask your lawyer or accountant about that. Employee versus independent contractor issues. Just be a little bit wary that if you do have an employee and they're working for you full-time and they got your business cards and you pay all their salary and you provide their computer and they're working in your office, you may have a contract that says independent contractor, but the IRS isn't going to believe that. And they're going to be an employee, which means that you have to withhold taxes for them. It also means that anything that they do while working for you, the company's going to be liable for. So this kind of goes back to that issue of if they're negligent and leave a bunch of soapy water out to the entranceway to your grocery store, you're going to be liable for everything that your employees do, regardless of whether or not you call them an independent contractor. Stock option plans, these are really popular these days. It's a way to give your employees equity in the company, give them a little bit of upside. Insurance, that's another big one. Don't forget about that. In Nebraska, you have to have insurance. It's the law, at least some bare level minimum of workers' comp insurance. But this is frankly your number one level of defense if you ever get sued for someone. If you do have someone that slips and falls in your grocery store, you really probably don't want to have to sacrifice your entire business right off the bat. You should have insurance. It's relatively affordable, and they'll pretty much sell you insurance to cover anything you can think of, from general liability to directors and officer policies to you name it. And a lot of it is really, frankly, pretty reasonable. When should you contact a lawyer? We'll talk a little bit about that. When you go to incorporate, pretty much the same issues. Whenever you have patent issues, tax issues, you're getting sued by someone. If you're raising money, it's all good times to go contact a lawyer. For incorporation, there are really good online sources like LegalZoom, which you may have heard of. And there's been a lot of open sourced legal documents that you can do it yourself. Most of those are good, but they're very limited. They're kind of a little bit of a lowest common denominator, one-size-fits-all product. So if you've got some unique issues or actually need to go talk to someone to actually understand what it is that you're downloading and signing, then usually it's worthwhile to go actually talk to a lawyer. Most lawyers like myself are more than willing to spend an hour of time in a coffee shop just kind of walking through the issues without even charging anyone anything at that point. How do you find a good lawyer? ask someone you know who's used a lawyer. That's number one reason. That's the number one way most people find lawyers, frankly. Look at the experience that they have. You know, go to their website, see what they've done before. Have they done the type of law that you're asking them questions about? Not all lawyers are the same. I don't know everything about the law. I know a lot about one very specific part of the law, but I'm not the guy that you want prosecuting your patents. You certainly don't want me in a courtroom trying to talk to a judge or sue on your behalf. I would be useless in that regard. But if you want to sell stock, I'm a pretty good guy to talk to. And conversely, your dad's litigation attorney or your uncle who does a lot of real estate work may not be the best person to talk to if you've got a very specific corporate securities issue or you've got a tax issue or a patent issue. So those are some, those are some things to look out for and make sure that if you're looking at an attorney that they do the type of work that you want to ask them questions about. And then the other big question that I get in contexts like this is, geez, lawyers are so expensive. How do I keep costs down? One, be organized. The places where I see clients run up lots of costs is when I have to do something 6 times because they come to me with a problem, I have to solve it, and then they go back and they change their mind because they haven't talked to the other party yet, and so I have to do it again. And then they come back and they've got an entirely new idea, and I gotta go do it again. And then we scratch that plan because they've got the next new brilliant idea. And so I have to do something 6 times, and then I get a question that says, wow, why is this is 6 times more than I thought it